Okay, we're here. We're here. We're live. We're on set. Mandy, how was your weekend? How are you doing?
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Adventures in Business. I've had this cold. I've had this weird little cold, and I muscled through it last week. And I went to urgent care on Friday, and I learned some things. I They did a chest X-ray, they did all the swabs, all the tests, all the everything, and I just have a cold. But I learned that there's 14 strains of colds out there. This is what the doctor said. So she said, "Wear your mask when you can if you're on an airplane." I was at a bunch of conferences like we all are at. We're at conferences and everyone's nasally. So that was my takeaway. I'm going to wear I'm going to wear a mask not at the conference next week, but if I get on an airplane again, which I will in a couple weeks, I'll just probably keep a mask handy cuz I don't like this cold. It's no bueno. But I feel better today than last week. I know I wasn't awesome last week. What about you, Amani? Where are you? How are you? And you're at the end of this cold. So how's your health going?
Yes. Okay, so let's answer a few questions here. So
Okay.
I'm currently in the Hyatt Long Beach. I'm
Mhm.
here to work a conference, the California Charter School Association. I'll be their opening DJ tonight, and I'll be their conference mediator or panelist moderator tomorrow morning. So I got double duty, which is awesome. That's what I love to do.
Mhm.
And I am kind of coming to the end of this cold, so I'm feeling much better. Just a few sneezes here and there. I don't really have the coughing and wheezing that was lingering, and it took a while to get through. It was no joke. It was no joke. But thank you for asking.
Yeah. Okay, so I have a question for your conference. What are some of the walk-up songs that you've got teed up?
So for this one, it's funny. So my walk-up song for this conference will be "Paid in Full" by Eric B. and Rakim when they
Ooh.
announce me as the walk-up. And then because they want to get right to the panel, I think they're just going to play "Let's Get It Started" after I announce all the panelists by Black Eyed Peas. And then I have to I have like a portfolio. I have like questions to ask them. I have to introduce them. So for the opening recession, I'll just kind of play my normal kind of opening music or whatever and mix in some things. So I have a couple of new songs I might try to sneak in there. I have a Taylor Swift remix. I have another Afrobeat song. And then for the panelists, I just have questions to ask them, kind of like how we're having a conversation today.
Mm, you're good at that. You're just a real pro investigator on those panels. That's great.
Yes, yes. Thank you.
Yeah, I like that you've incorporated Tay Tay too. She's lingering. She's just lingering and singing. I love it.
T Swizzle. I call her T Swizzle, but Tay Tay, yes, yes. So, yes, much love and respect to T Swizzle or Tay Tay.
Mhm.
All right. Well, I have a lot of questions written down. Matter of fact, I have to grab my notebook to get them. But I am super excited about our guest because she is a wealth of knowledge, and I have all the questions. So, who are we speaking with today?
Well, we have an educator turned entrepreneur, brand strategist, a social media maven. That's my name for her. She didn't call herself that. You may have seen her on many stages before. Every time she hits the stage, she drops so many knowledge nuggets. You might have seen her on stages with Ryan Serhant, with the California Association of Realtors, with the Women's Council of Realtors. She's a co host to a really cool podcast called Not Nice Clever. And she is committed to helping you level up your mind, your brand, and your bank account. So I want to bring Candice Carcioppolo to the stage.
I'm
Yes. So
so
round of applause.
excited to be
Candace is
here.
here. Normally, if I was in studio, I'd have my little applause button, but I don't have it
I
with
love
me
it.
here today. So I'll add it post. We have so many questions to ask. Mandy, well, first of all, Candace, I'm curious. Let us know where you from, where did you grow up, and maybe
Yeah.
what's your fondest memory? What's your fondest memory of high school?
Oh, high school.
Ooh,
Interesting.
very
Okay.
cool. Mhm.
I grew up in Hacienda Heights, California, and it's a suburb of LA. And my fondest memory of high school, this is going to be embarrassing, but I was in color guard and I loved going on the field with my flag and my glitzy outfit. Like, that was so fun for me. And I'm a total introvert, so it doesn't seem like it would be fun for me because, it was, like, so flashy. But I love just that being with the band, the music, performing. That was definitely, like, a highlight for me from high school.
Oh my gosh, do you still whip out a flag routine every now and again,
No, but I
as a
think
party
that
trick?
I think my husband would love that and be so embarrassed by it at the same time, so I probably should one day.
Just one day, yeah.
Yeah,
Let us know when you do. It sounds like
yeah.
it'd be fun. I
Yeah.
wonder if we should tell the story, Candace, of how we met
I
because I
absolutely think so.
I think
Yeah.
so. Do you wanna share the story?
Well, Mandy and I both seem to be traveling all the time. I see her on social media everywhere. I'm traveling all the time, and we met on in the A group on a Southwest flight from San Diego to
I
San
love it.
Francisco. That's an important detail.
It is an important detail.
Because you're only getting in the A group if you're traveling all the time because you can't deal with, being the last passenger on a plane and the last passenger off. Um, Anyhow, so I don't even know how we started talking, but we realized that we were both speakers.
Yeah. Well, and I also think she was on the aisle and I was on the window. And I don't normally talk to people on the airplane, but we both sort of locked eyes like no one is sitting in this middle seat. And I think we
We're
both were
like
like, if we just start talking, nobody will sit there, right? I don't know. Is that
because
I
we were
think
both,
that's
like,
what
leaning over that middle seat, and we were just taking up too
happened.
much space, and we were being so chatty that they were like, "That seems miserable," and so everyone just kept passing us.
That's exactly we did. We bogarted the middle seat, and then we couldn't stop talking, and then it was just nonstop talking, I think, and we both started talking about being speakers. But what Candace, a knowledge nugget you dropped immediately, and this is what you lured me in with, was you started talking about the service of sales because I think you and your husband were at a hotel in San Diego that weekend and you were looking at you're a member of a club
Oh
or
my
looking at being a
gosh,
member of the
yes.
club and you had a bad service experience.
Yeah,
Do you remember this?
I don't wanna name the hotel because I love the
Don't do
hotel,
that.
but if you follow
Yeah.
me enough, you probably already know. Um, but we went to a hotel where we both got Facebook ads served to us, like, "Hey, if you wanna become a member here, here are all the perks." We're like, "Hell yeah, that sounds great. That's, like, sounds right up our alley." And we went, and the experience did not match what they were asking for the investment. And that seemed so disappointing to us because we kind of felt like the curtain was pulled back on what's actually being offered at this place that we love so much. And so we started talking about just hospitality in general and experiences that people have and how that impacts how people perceive you. Whether you are a brand or a personal brand, your experience that you provide people really matters.
It totally matters. So
Interesting.
I was sucked in right away. I was like, I could talk to this girl for ages and ages. It was awesome. But what I did learn, and I would love for you to share with the audience, is so we say you're an educator turned entrepreneur. So you used to be or a middle school teacher,
Middle
right? Can
school
you
teacher, yeah.
tell about your service to it was 7 years in middle
Yeah.
school, and then how you went from being a middle school teacher to a brand strategist and an entrepreneur running a successful business?
Well, my mom will tell you that I wanted to be a teacher since the beginning of time, basically, since I was in kindergarten. I was the kid who had all the kids sitting down and I was like teaching them something on the whiteboard in the
Aw,
backyard. Like
that's
that
cute.
was who I've always been. So
Mhm.
I always knew I wanted to teach. And I started teaching middle school in South LA and I taught there for 5 years before moving to Las Vegas and teaching there at charter schools, which Amani, I heard you say you going to a charter
Yeah.
school conference. Absolutely believe in charter school. So that's super cool. Anyhow, I was doing that for 7 years, and within that, I always loved being able to work on kids with their mindset, like, helping people to understand that they can have, do, or be anything that they want to, and that really mattered to me, and I got to do a lot of really cool stuff with my kids. I was always innovative. I was that teacher who was, like, trying the next thing, so, um, I remember I heard about this practice that they did at Google, and it's called 20% time.
Mm.
And they give Google employees 20% time to work on any idea or project that they want to. And then, if the project comes out good enough, obviously Google's going to sell it, right? So, anyhow, I was like, let's do 20% time in my classroom. What would that look like if I gave my kids the opportunity to work on a project with 20% of their school time? And what could that look like? So we ended up doing this quarterly where my kids would work on a project with 20% of their time in class. And then we would present their projects to their families in the evening. Like one night we'd had like a big event. And it was really cool for my kids because they felt like they had ownership over what they wanted to learn and they were
Mhm.
passionate about. And one of my kids, this was way before this was common, but he built a website for his auntie who had a hair salon and she never had a website before. And he built her website so that people can go on and book their appointments online, which was not common, that many years ago. And he was so excited. He showed it to all the parents on parent night. Everyone was blown away because the parents don't know how to build websites, right?
Mhm.
And they thought it was so cool. And he was particularly excited because his auntie gave him a pair of J's for that. I was like, boy, you could have got a
Ooh.
lot of J's.
Mhm.
One pair
Yes.
wasn't enough, honey. But
Yes.
that's okay. We learned. We learned about what that meant. And it was just so cool to see my kids like doing things that they were proud of, doing things that people who were older than them hadn't had the courage to try. And so I was just always that person who wanted to kind of push the limits. And at first, other teachers were like, well, that's not by the standards. But I figured out a way. I always figured out a way to make sure that my kids felt excited about being in class and felt like the work that they were doing is going to matter for their life.
Mm.
Interesting. Interesting. So I want to kind of stay here, like Mandy always says, I want to stay here. We're reversing roles today. You talked about mindset, and I find that's very, very interesting that you chose to expose kids to that at a middle school age, where I really only learned about mindset once I started entrepreneurship. What is the difference when you're working with kids and their mindset to when you're working with adults?
It's honestly so much easier to start with kids because kids already believe that they can do anything. They already have big goals and ideas. And typically, life hasn't given them enough no's for them to understand that maybe
Mm.
that's not true or that's not the way. And so, when you can foster a mindset of a child and start sharing habits with them that maybe they haven't seen before, I think it's really helpful and I think it snowballs in their life. And they remember I've had so many kids find me on LinkedIn being like, you inspired me. I became a principal. I'm aging myself here, but
Mm.
like they've done really amazing things and have found me on Instagram and LinkedIn to share stories about things that they remember from when I was in the classroom with them, which is like exactly why I did what I was doing. But the truth
Ah,
is, and this is kind of sad, but the truth is I left the classroom because I was too bougie to make $60,000 a year for the rest of my entire life. Like I just knew that I wanted more and I was done with waiting on a 3% raise for the rest of my life as a single woman. At the time, I was just like, this can't be it. Like I can't do the things that I want to do on this salary, or I can't live in the neighborhood I want to live in on this salary. I felt like it was really limiting. And so the sad truth is like that's probably the main catalyst for me wanting to leave the classroom is compensation.
Mm,
I think it's so cool though that I think so many times we're afraid to be like, I just want to make more money. Like there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with making the money that you're worth or just stating that or going for that. I love that. I just, high five to you on that. And so I want to, go through that transition. So you're in the education, you're in the nonprofit world, you
Mhm.
hire a coach. Like,
Yeah.
what was that moment where you were like, okay, like,
Yeah.
coach, I see this. This is so clear to me.
So, I was in the classroom, and at the time, a nonprofit had come in, and I think they came in at a time when my kids were showing off their projects, and they thought it was super cool, like innovative classroom. And they actually were in my classroom, and they're like, "We actually want you on our team." And
Mm,
so I went through the interview process with the nonprofit, and I ended up working for them for 5 years, which was great and an amazing experience for me. But at the nonprofit, what I did was I worked mainly as a coach. So I coached teachers.
mm,
And coaching educators was really fun for me, but when I was working with them, I realized I can coach anyone. You don't have to be an educator because what are we doing? We're setting goals, we're backwards planning, we're setting action plans, we're measuring data, and like those skills are skills that I can use outside of education. And so all teachers have a side hustle because they don't make enough money. And so
mhm,
teachers were reaching out to me saying like, "Oh, I want to start this t-shirt business or a yoga business or this business. Do you think you can help me with what you do in the classroom? Like, can you help me set my goals for my side hustle?" And so I started doing that for like, I don't know, $100, $200, just helping them on the weekends
mhm,
or after hours with their plans. And I was like, this is what I want to do because I loved being able to help them make a plan to make money. Like,
mm,
"Hey, like, you don't have to wait on anyone to tell you how much you're worth. We can make as much money as we feel like, and we can do that by setting a plan." And so I got really excited about that, but I realized that they wouldn't take action on the plans if they didn't feel worthy. They didn't take action on the plans if they felt like this plan was too big for them. Or
mm,
there's, like, this weird thing with educators too that I felt this for a long time when I first started my business was that, like, if I made more money from a client than I made in a month in the classroom, I felt like it was unfair.
ooh. Where do you think
Like
mm,
that
like
comes
I
from?
like, back in the day, if I charged a client $5,000, I'd be like, "It takes a month to make $5,000." Like, oof, you know?
Mm,
Like, it was my own limited belief because that was the most money I'd ever made at the time. And, like,
mhm,
I would just feel a kind of feeling, and I know I held myself back for so long because of that. And so a lot of the teachers I was working with had that similar mindset that was holding them back from even just making, an extra $1,000 a month. And so I decided I saw online that you can become a life coach and life coaches can help people to overcome some of the mindsets that are holding them back. And I was like, "Ooh, I want to do that. I want to learn all about that." So I became a life coach and I decided that I was going to leave my nonprofit job and just do life coaching full time. And at the time I didn't have enough information to know that this was not a great idea. Um, but I just made a backwards plan. I was like, "Okay, I could do this. A backwards plan in 6 months, I'm leaving my job. I'm gonna save this much money, and I'm gonna leave my job, and I'm gonna make it happen." And I did. And the first year was great. I matched my income in my first year. I worked way less than I did as a classroom teacher. I matched my income, so that was cool. But the second year, everything kinda dried up. My warm sphere had already hired me. I had exhausted them.
mm,
And so with my last bit that was left on my credit card before I had to call home and move in with my parents in my mid-30s,
mm,
I swiped my credit card and I hired a coach, and she basically told me, "Candice, I want you to go live on Facebook every day for the container that I was in, which was a 6-month container with her." She's like, "I want you to go live every day." And I was like, "What am I gonna go live about? What am I gonna talk about?" She's like, "You'll figure it out." Okay, I'll
mhm,
figure it out. She's like,
mhm,
"Whatever you do with your clients, just do it live. Just click record and say whatever you say in a session." And so I ended up going live 137 times in 180 days, and my life and business changed forever. And I didn't know what I was gonna talk about. I didn't know what I was gonna say. I didn't have a plan. I was just like, "I'm just gonna talk about what I talk about to my clients." and see
Mhm.
what happens. But people started paying attention. They started listening, and it wasn't a lot. Like the first time I went live, I think 3 people listened, and one of them was my roommate, and later she admitted that it was, like, playing in the background, but she wasn't really paying attention, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that when people start creating content, that keeps them from continuing because it's true. 2 people are gonna watch. It's true, 1 person's gonna watch. It's true, no one's gonna comment. Like, all of that is true, but if you can push through, what's on the other side of that discomfort is so much opportunity. And and that's what I like to help people figure out the mindset, push through the part that's hard or messy, and see what's available on the other side of their fear.
I love that. I love that story. And I think it's so true. Like people are so worried about how curated it is or how perfect it is. How long were these lives that you did
I think
an
like 10
average?
minutes. I think
Yeah.
like I don't know, 10, 15 minutes. Maybe they grew longer as people started watching because uh, over a period of time, people started saying, "Oh, can you talk about time management?" Or, "Oh, can you talk
Mm,
about this?" And they started giving me ideas of things to talk about because they expected me to be on every day. And like I just became like their friend that they carried in their pocket. And
mhm.
that helped me to uncover who I was as a business owner, entrepreneur, as what I cared about and what to kind of go back to the life coaching thing. So I was life coaching for a while. And then when I discovered the power of content and I discovered the power of branding through that kind of going live process and kind of figuring out who I was like, ooh, this is what I want to teach people. I want to teach people how they can captivate an audience by the content that they create and it can serve them in so many different ways. Like one, just like filling your cup because you're doing the thing that you love to do. But another way is also creating opportunity for you to make money.
Mm.
And so I switched to branding and specifically real estate agents, which is kind of interesting how that happened. But just real estate branding specifically happened probably about 4 years ago. And, that's kind of the space that I've been in, and it's been incredible to be able to meet so many people from across the country because of content and have opportunities because of content.
Ah, it's brilliant.
Now, yeah, now how did your that's an amazing story, by the way. What was the transition from after you finished your 134 days live? How did your business grow then and what happened next?
What I realized was that I had momentum, and that's what everyone needs, right? Is momentum. You're just feeling like things are starting to fall into place. People are starting to talk to me. I wasn't having to chase people as much as I had previously. And that's when I was locked in. I was like, "Oh, this is all I had to do? Be consistent, show my face, tell people what I actually care about." Um, and so my business changed because I wasn't chasing, I was attracting.
Mm,
And it probably wasn't like a monetary impact immediately, but over the next 6 to 12 months, absolutely, it impacted the amount of money I was making, and it actually led to me working with Ryan Serhant, which I don't know if you all know who he is, but he was on Million Dollar Listing and, new Netflix show coming soon. But the way that we were able to connect is his team was hosting a Serhant Clubhouse
Yeah,
room back in the day
Clubhouse.
during 2020 yeah, during the pandemic, they were hosting a Clubhouse room, and they were talking about branding because Ryan's huge on building personal brands, and I raised my hand in that Clubhouse room and answered a question that was directed to the Serhant people. I answered it anyways, and in my DMs was the vice president of Serhant Ventures saying, "Hey, we need to talk," and they looked at my portfolio, which is my online presence, stalked me a little online, and they're like, "This is the woman who does what we do. Talks about personal branding, talks about real estate, talks about mindset, right? And we want her because of content, because I curated my online presence to look how I wanted to look. Had they looked at it 6 months before, I would have been a middle school history teacher. I mean, not exactly, but, you know, um,
Mhm.
yeah.
so it's really about positioning yourself, and that led me to, being able to have so many cool opportunities working with them.
Now, before Mandy asks her question, I just have to follow up. Do you advise your current clients that you work with now to do a similar type of quote unquote challenge about going live a certain number of days? And how has it, what are some of the success stories you had from your clients?
Yeah, I mean, I don't back then I was Facebook Live. I don't necessarily tell them to go live for 6 months, but I do typically start my clients off with going live for 30 days because I think that in those 30 days, you can understand that especially going live, you're not focused on editing, you're not focusing on everything that's being perfect. You're just focusing on talking to your people, talking to the people that already exist within your sphere and understanding what they find valuable. So, yes, I absolutely recommend that. And my clients have found that there's more engagement on their content, that they are starting to understand there's not a you don't always have to chase. That content allows you to attract. And chasing has that desperate energy associated with it. And when my clients have realized they feel the power of attracting, then literally you could see a difference in their face. They're
Mhm.
not holding on so tightly, they're not so desperate that more people are curious about them, asking about them, wanting to work with them, and seeing them as a leader, and it's really developing thought leadership. That term is sometimes scary for people because they're like, "Well, who am I to have this message? I just have my own story." But your story can really impact another human being, no matter how big or small the story is. And so when my clients can begin to feel that, they just start showing up in a different energy. And I really truly believe that that's what allows them to attract the business that they want and work with people that actually align with them, which also is huge.
Interesting. Go ahead, Mandy.
Yeah. Well, that's half the battle. And you've said this so many times that I just want to call it out of what is powerful is you're not chasing, you're attracting. I don't think that can be said enough the way you're saying it too, because the proof's in the pudding and how you're doing it. So you interact with so many, so many people in the real estate community, and I see it. And if you're not following Candace, her Instagram is rolling on the ticker here. You have to follow her. You will get so many tips, but it's fascinating. I learn a lot about real estate just from watching it, but I'm learning a lot about social media too. You're interacting with so many real estate people and other industries. So you don't have to name names, but for those that are doing it right, what are a couple things they're doing? And for those that are doing it all wrong, and I'm sure you're seeing that, what are people doing? So like maybe just a start, stop, go kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Okay. If you're doing it right, you have a clearly defined audience. You know who you're talking to. So I like to use this example. Mandy, let's pretend my phone rang right now and we were in person. You and I were standing next to each other and my phone rang.
Okay.
And I grabbed my phone. I'm like, uh huh. Yeah. Okay. Here, Mandy. And I just handed you my phone.
Okay. I took it.
Yeah.
Hello.
But you're kind of confused, right? You're like,
Right.
hi. But what if I was like, "Hey, Mandy, this is my friend, and she's thinking of moving to San Diego, and she's also a dog mom like you, and she's really into traveling all over the country. She loves like beautiful hotels. Can you talk to her?" You'd be like,
I Yeah, yeah. Be like best friends. Yeah.
"You're best friends, right?"
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you have context about who you're talking to, and
Mhm.
now you're excited to talk to this person. Most people mess up when they create content because they try to talk to everyone instead of talking to the dog mom who wants to move to San Diego, loves traveling in beautiful hotels.
That's it. Yeah.
And if you're
Talk to the
making
right person.
talk to the right person. And one of the things that Kyle Scott at Sirhan says is, and he got it from a book, but he says, you can't boil the ocean. And it's so true. But if we're just talking about this little pond here, we might be able to boil that pond, right? And once we do that, we might be able to scale and scale and scale. But you have to start with a specific audience, with specific problems, with specific interests, because then you're going to speak to their soul, right? They're like, oh my gosh, she gets me. Last week I created a reel and I don't even remember the topic of it was, but I had one of my favorite comments that I get over and over again, which is next time just at me. They say next time just at me, Candice, because like I spoke so to them They felt so called out in that specific reel that they're like, "Oh, I know you're talking to me," right? And that's the biggest compliment anyone can give me, because that means that I know my audience and I know what they're struggling with and I know how to get them out of that struggle.
I think that
Mm,
whole niching down thing is so important, and
yeah.
a friend to all is not the best friend, right? You do want to really, really define who that audience is. Um, I want to talk about AI for a second, and what role you think AI plays in social media in terms of building content. Like, we're friends, by the way, we're friends of AI here. We love it, right? We're not like gung ho, we're not anti, but we're open to it. But
Yeah.
what role do you see it playing in making attractive, making
Yeah.
content that attracts people, but also saves you time, but doesn't like robot you out? Like, how do you feel about that?
I feel like using AI to amplify what you're already doing. So once you have honed in on your person, you can ask AI to take maybe a caption that you've written and say, "Hey, give me 3 other topics related to this." And it can help you to amplify what you've already created. I don't think that it's a place to go to create every piece of content that you're going to do every single month personally, because I do think that there is something about the human touch, the
Yeah.
story that's going to connect people, but I do think you should use it to amplify. So take what you've already done. Some things that we're using AI for right now, we're taking our podcast transcripts, dropping it into AI and say like pull out 5 tweetable sentences or statements, and then we might add them to threads or tweet them out if we want to, or maybe highlight them in one of our newsletters. So we're using it to save time, but not to necessarily create the content.
That's awesome. That's great. Love that.
I'm curious with you, how did professional speaking enter into the picture, into your kind of workflow, and how has that grown your career?
Yeah, I mean, that's been huge. People seeing me on stage has really changed the way that they see me. And I'm an introvert through and through, but there's something about being on a stage that all of that kind of goes away. I forget what's happening because I want to share the message because I'm passionate about I know how branding can change the lives of my audience, right? So, I kind of zone out when I'm up there. I forget that I don't like talking to people. Um, but how did it happen? I mean, I think I couldn't even oh, I know. No, I do know. Okay. When I was in Las Vegas, I was living in Vegas, and some friends of mine went to a conference, and maybe I was early in my entrepreneurial journey at that time. Went to a conference. It was, I want to say it was at the Cosmo, really nice conference for women. And there were people on stage, and I was like, I want to do that one day. I want to be up there. That'd be so cool. I hadn't really thought about it before that. And during the break, during lunch, I was telling my girlfriends, I'm going to go sit up on stage and then you're going to take a picture of me. I'm like, okay. So it was lunch break. I go sit up on stage. I have like a cute little setup, the couches, the deal, how it looks, right?
Mhm.
It's like super cute. So I'm up there and I'm just taking pictures, whatever, post it to my Instagram story. Not really thinking this through, but maybe like manifesting it without knowing I was manifesting it. And so there I am on a stage at a conference, and someone slides into my DMs who I knew, and she was like, "Hey, Candice, I'm hosting an event this, in a few months. Would you come speak?" And I think I spoke for like $500. Like it
Mhm.
was like that, but it was a big deal for me back then, right?
Yeah, yeah, you
And
live and learn though, you
yeah,
live
you live
that
and learn.
way.
Exactly. I was like,
Yes.
sure, I'll speak. I've never done this before, but I think that being a teacher for 7 years and standing up in front of a classroom and talking for 6 hours every day does help. Um, like that's how I got my first speaking gig, and then I had pictures of me on stage, and I had video clips of me on stage, and then I started sharing those, and it just rolled and rolled and rolled. And so, actually, I got my first video with 1,000,000 views from a clip of me on stage last month, I think, which is pretty cool.
That's awesome. What's the clip about?
I'm talking about how you need to have a personal brand, and I show you cases where, like, Kylie Jenner has a personal brand and then just her cosmetics brand, but her personal brand is so much more powerful as far as followers, engagement, all of that, and it's like your personal brand is the catalyst for you to build anything else after that, right? But most people are trying to just like build their product and not themselves. So kind of about that.
Why do you think that's the case? Why do people kind of they don't really focus on their personal brand. They're so focused on either the brand that they're building themselves or their company. There's like a lot of missed space there. Why do you feel that's the case?
I mean, I think that people are nervous to put themselves out there. I think that they're worried about what people are going to think about them, and it's much easier to talk about a product than it is about your own story. It's vulnerability, really. If you like want to go back to Brene Brown and talk about vulnerability, like that's really what it's about. But I always joke that I could sell women's vitamins next year and people would buy them from me just because they know, like, and trust me as a human. So it doesn't matter what I sell as much as it matters that people know me. And I think that people shy away from their personal brand because they are worried about what people will think.
And how do you help people get over that fear?
Oh, it's
Asking for
just
a friend,
yeah.
Amani.
Yeah,
Amani, are you
asking for a
asking
friend.
for a friend?
Yeah. No, I'm so like no one likes this answer. This isn't the sexy answer, but it's just like, hey, we just make a checklist and we do the damn thing. Like, okay, I'm just gonna go live and I'm not gonna the expectation of what's going to happen after the live, like we're not even gonna worry about that. There is no expectation. We're just gonna do the thing that I'm supposed to do. So go live and talk to my people. Okay, check. Then I'm gonna do the next thing. Check. And we're just gonna keep going at it. And we're not gonna worry about what happens on the other side because I already know that what happens on the other side is opportunity. But we don't need to worry about that. Everyone's like, "Well, I went live and 2 people watched me, so I'm not gonna do it again." Like, well, that's not how this works, right? It's just like with any business, with it if you were an athlete, you don't just show up to the Olympics. You have to practice, and it's ugly, and it doesn't feel good, and some days you don't feel like it. And you just do it over and over and over again, and guess what? Everyone else has left, and you're the only one standing, so obviously you get to win. Like, that's just what happens because most people aren't willing to put themselves through that much. But when you do,
Magic. Yeah.
Yes.
I
So, Manny, I'm gonna go to you. I have
yeah.
an idea that you're inspiring me to do right on the spot now, but I'm gonna think about it for 3 minutes and then share with you after Mandy talks. So go ahead.
Ooh, Amani, I like an on the spot idea. Candice, you're inspiring, Amani. This is great.
yes, I love it.
You talked about sales a little bit ago, and I want to talk about because you've said this before, and I think this is really important. Selling versus serving.
Ooh,
And how do you make people feel like humans and not make them feel like a number, especially in the real estate space where it's about sales and deals and listings and stuff. And I think selling versus serving could be that transition that you're talking about the analogy that you made earlier about a chasing versus attracting. So I'm
yeah.
curious what your thoughts are on that.
I had another thought going back to Amani's question where he said, how do you have people get over it? One thing that I tell my clients all the time is be unattached to the outcome. We're not worried about the
Mm,
outcome. You are not worried about the outcome. That's my job. I'm going to worry
mm,
about the outcome. But you, my client, you're just going to do the things I tell you to do.
that's
And we'll
awesome.
worry about the outcomes later. So unattached. Okay. And then going back to you, Mandy, um, serving versus selling, it's very different because I'm not going to sell you a product or a service to make money. I'm going to align your goals with my expertise and we're going to win together. It's my service that's going to help you to reach your goal. And if it's not, then I'm not going to sell you for no reason because that's bad for my brand. But if I'm always working with people who I know have a need for my service and my service will help them achieve their goals, I also know that they are going to happily say my name first in a room that matters.
Hmm.
And that's how I'm going to continue to grow. And I'm going to be better for it because I'm going to have more aligned clients because your friends are probably similar to you. And now I have more aligned clients than selling to people who actually don't need my service and feels kind of grimy and sleazy, or people who aren't ready for my service. So, coming from a place of service, helping people align their goals, knowing what their goals are, and being honest about that has always been beneficial to me. And even there's been times when I go on a consultation and I literally would be like, I honor your story. I love that you took the time to share this with me, but I don't think that you're ready for this. But in 6 months, if you feel like you are, like, come back to me. And they've absolutely come back because they're like, you could have just sold me right there. I would have paid on the spot, but because you were
Mm,
honest with me, and they probably sent me their friends ahead of them, right? Because
mhm.
they are always going to trust me. And that matters more than anything.
People buy from people they trust. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So, as we shared in the green room, I'm releasing this book on the disappearance of Black R&B groups, and your story about how you went live every day for 134 days.
137 days out of 180. I was supposed to do 180.
Excuse me. Yes, 137, 180. I heard 134 for some reason.
Mm.
And there's like 66, 67 groups in that book. So if I went live every day for 67 days to highlight one group, like as a coach, just so people can experience what your coaching style is, how would you coach me through that and walk that idea out to perhaps real life?
I would say today you send out an email to everyone on your list and say, hey, next Monday I'm starting to go live with 67 artists in 67 days, and drop some of your favorite groups that you want to hear about. I'm spilling all the tea where there's nothing that I'm holding back. Hope to see you there. If you have a friend who's interested in this, pass this newsletter along. And I would hop on my Instagram stories and just say you're doing it. Why? Because then you're accountable to all those people who you just committed to.
Mm.
And then, like, have fun with it. Like, you're already passionate about this more than anyone else. So I would just hop on. I would say, hey, I'm going to do this for 15 minutes. I'm always going to do the why am I talking about them? Just like the regular questions, right? Where, when, why, how. Just starting there, reporting on it. Let that live in a feed somewhere and be excited. Make your audience feel like they're part of it. Hey, who do you want to hear about tomorrow? Oh, yeah, they're on my list. And that's it. And then obviously at the end of every single one being like, "Hey, in about 70 days the book is coming out, so if you wanna hear more," you're teasing it. And then I'd probably be now I would be way more sophisticated about it. Now I'd be like, and then when I'm done, I would put the transcript in AI and be like, "Hey, what are the tweets that I can pull out? What can I tweet? What can I put on threads?" And use the content of what you're talking about to write the next book.
Amani,
Mm, mm.
do it. You got to do it. 66
Yes,
days.
yes, yes. Interesting. Okay, okay, that's good. Um,
And, like, the
I
main
still have
thing
so
is
many.
don't overthink it. Like, you
Yes,
can't
yes.
get it wrong. You can't get it wrong.
When you look at like content in the social media world currently, I'm just curious your opinion. Like, what apps are you following closely? Which ones are you a little bit wary about? Kind of where do you stand in that sort of environment?
I don't care. There's always gonna be a new app. One app is always gonna be old. There's always gonna be something that's shinier. I say at this point to go make the type of content that makes sense for who you are. So I love my podcast. Like, that is like my home. That's my safe space. I don't even know what I talk about on my podcast half the time. It's just like me and my friend talking. So I love podcasting and I also love short form videos. So I'm on Instagram. But there's no wrong place to be. It's really about what can you beyond that's sustainable for you? What aligns with how you like to share your ideas? I also forced myself to start writing. And what I found was that was really helpful for me to get
Mm.
even more clear about my messaging was by forcing myself to write, even though I don't consider myself a writer at all. But I started writing blog posts that really helped me to hone in on my message. And so there's many, many forms of content. They all work. It's about your consistency.
Love it. Love it. We're to the point in the show because we're gonna save some time in the back because I know Mandy and I have extra questions. So we're gonna do this a little earlier. We're to the point in the show where we flip the script and allow you to ask both Mandy and myself a question. It could be the same question, different question. Nothing is off limits. Limits. So, who do you want to ask a question to first?
I would like to ask Amani, and obviously, I'm always trying to garner people's expertise. So I'm just going to selfishly ask you, after this 30 or so minutes together, what would my walk up song be for a stage? What would you
Oh,
pick
that's
for me?
good. That's a good one.
Mm. What would your walk after I've talked to you for like 30 minutes? Well, we're
What's
officially
the
at 40.
vibe? This is your area of
What's the vibe?
expertise.
Ooh, okay. So let me think here. I think I have to do a mashup though, because it's really hard to pick one song because
Ooh.
you've kind of
Ooh.
like
Okay.
we'll take a little sprinkle of like Tina Turner's Simply the Best, and then
Okay.
I'm trying to think of another song that has to do with like vision. I want to say Mariah Carey, Vision of Love, but that's a different kind of vision. And then also just like you consistently are talking about like mindset and not overthinking it. So it would be like Black Eyed Peas, Let's Get It Started, something like Just Do It or
Yeah.
whatever. So a kind of little mashup for that. That would kind of be my 3-song medley for you.
Ooh.
And I'll keep thinking on it too.
I like it. I like it. I may need some consulting on that.
We can do it. We can do it for
I love it.
sure.
I like the Tina Turner. That was a strong I like that. I think you lead with the Tina Turner though. That's good
Yeah,
stuff.
Yeah,
yeah,
I love
yeah.
it.
Agreed. Hmm.
Okay, Mandy, what is the thing that is nagging you about your life or business right now?
Ooh. I'll very frank. The first thing that came to my mind is our distribution channel for our podcast. Amani and I talk about this all the time. Is we have this live show. We love it. We've been doing it 2 years. And we are on all the different platforms, but I don't think either one of us have investigated, we just haven't taken the time that we want to or need to figure out like how is this best distributed and analyze the metrics. And I know it's a great show because we have a fun audience and we have great guests like you and we love doing it, we enjoy it. So that's nagging me because
Yep.
I know it, we're not giving it its potential. I know
Are you
if
guys
it,
coming
yeah.
to the conference with me in LA that's next week? That is called Podcast Evolutions.
No,
Oh,
I
with
Mo
podcast movements, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
so
I
I've
spoke to. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, so my podcast is like this is like my baby right now, like, this is the thing that I'm so committed to growing, and
mhm,
so the thing that I have seen happen over and over again in my career is that when I'm in community with people who are freaking doing the damn thing the way I wanna do it,
mhm.
that pushes me, propels me forward, so I'm committed to going to at least 2 conferences with podcasters every year starting this year, and so the first one we're going to is, there, so I would say that, and then have you guys checked out Listen Notes to see where your stats are?
No, not yet, but we're writing it down as we speak. So listen
Yep.
notes.
Check
Yes.
out Listen Notes. This was really exciting for us. We're 155 episodes in, and we just realized that we're at the top 3% of podcasts, which is amazing, which
Good
also
for
is like,
you.
why aren't we telling sponsors this? Because right now we don't have sponsors. We cover all the costs on our own.
Yeah.
I mean, we obviously get clients from it, so we are making money from our podcast, just not directly. But why not? So these are all things that I'm thinking about as well. And I would just say get in community with people who are performing at the level that you want to.
Yes, I love it. It's funny, I did look at that podcast
Well, you
conference.
should come.
I have another conference next week that I'm speaking at, but it's a good reminder. I like the kick in the pants, Candice, because it is a good reminder to just relook at other podcast conferences because I'm the same way. When I'm around a whole bunch of people doing things that are better or they're maybe 2 or 3 steps ahead, it fires me up. So I'm in the
Totally.
same Yeah, I appreciate that
Yeah.
kick in the pants. That's a good
Yeah.
question and a suggestion. Amani, we haven't had somebody ask us a question and then give us some coaching advice immediately
I
after.
know. I
That's
love
good
it.
stuff.
Bonus. Like
Eh,
now you see why the Tina Turner song came to the top quickly because I
Yeah.
could tell the energy here. Now,
Yeah.
Candice, when you were 21, where were you living? Were you in school? What were you doing when you were
Yep.
21?
So when I was 21, I was living at home with my parents. I was probably in my last year of undergrad at Cal State Fullerton studying
Yes.
child development with an emphasis on education, and then getting ready to go to grad school. I went to grad school probably the year after that. Um,
Okay.
yeah.
Good. So that was why I asked that question on purpose because I wanted to get a quick shout out to Cal State University Fulton because I teach there. You went there, so I could tie
Yeah.
that in.
Mhm.
But we're gonna go to the TSU at Cal State University Fullerton, and we're gonna talk to Candice, and we're gonna ask Candice, based on what you know now in 2024, what advice would you give and share with 21-year-old Candice?
21-year-old Candice was very achievement oriented.
Mm.
Um, and I don't want to say that I'm not achievement oriented anymore, but back then what achievement looked like was someone gave me a diploma, was someone gave me a certificate, was someone gave me the raise. And what I realize now is that I get to decide at every age, at every level, at every stage in my life where I want to be. And there's no gatekeeper to that. Where I think before I was like, I'm this person that has to go through these levels. And when the levels happen, then things unlock. And what I've realized is there are no levels except the ones that you create in your mind that actually don't exist. And whatever it is that you want, you can literally have right now without anyone's stamp of approval or permission slip. And I learned that permission slips were bullshit when I was a teacher. And I was like, oh, I'm the one giving permission. This is definitely bullshit. This is not real,
Who
right?
let me do this?
Yeah,
Yeah.
who let me do this? Like, what authority do I actually have? None. And so that's literally how I learned that permission slips are bullshit. And I always joke with my clients and with other people, permission granted. Oh, you wanted permission, permission granted. Take the
Yeah.
next step.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's
Good
great.
advice. And then my follow-up would be for you specifically, because you spoke about mindset and books, if you're going to recommend 3 books that
Mm.
people should read if they want to improve their mindset or their personal development, what 3 books come to mind?
Think and Grow Rich, Super Attractor. I'm going to do 2 Gabby Bernstein ones, and The Universe Has Your Back.
Nice. Super Attractor. That's Gabby too, also, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Mandy, over to you.
Well, I have 2 questions. So one is you talk a lot about being an introvert and you talk a lot about that on your podcast. So can you tell everybody a little bit about your podcast first and then explain the introvert part of it?
Yeah.
Mm.
So, my podcast is with my podcast partner, Kat, and it's called Not Nice Clever. We talk about branding, marketing, money, and manifesting, all of my favorite topics, and kind of through the lens of being introverts in this space that people believe is only for extroverts. Because I think that if you call yourself an introvert and you see someone making a podcast, you think, oh, that person must be so. I'm shy in real life. Unless I'm talking about things I care about specifically, I'm probably not gonna talk to you. I'll be bored. I'll just ignore you. Um, I won't know how to I can't start a conversation with small talk, like, that's not a thing for me. It has to be we have to get in deep or I'm not interested. Um, and I don't like new spaces with new people. So, for example, when we're going to this conference, this podcast movements conference that we've never been to before, it's going to be me and my podcast host who's also an introvert in front of hundreds or thousands of people. And we're going to be like, oh, this is weird. How do we talk to new people? Like all of that is going to come up for us. And so we just like to create the space on the podcast to talk about that. Like, yeah, it's normal, I think, to feel strange walking into a room or to not know how to start a conversation or to not want to go somewhere because you don't have your safety blanket friend with you. Like that's a normal thing for many adult humans and
Mhm.
it's okay and you can still build a successful brand even with those feelings. And actually, content has really allowed me to be able to push through those feelings and still get my message across because I'm just sitting in my own office right now talking to two people, which is way less intimidating than having to go to a space where everything is new and uncomfortable. And now I just get to connect with your audience in the safety of my own home. And this episode gets to play over and over and over again while I'm sleeping. People are listening to my voice, hearing my story, following me on Instagram, sending me a DM. Like, this makes it sustainable for me.
Yeah, that's good. I appreciate that. I think more people are introverts than they let on. And I think there's some embarrassment about that, but there shouldn't be because there's an energy management piece. We interviewed Aaron King a couple of months ago who talked all about energy management, but there is an energy management piece with the introvert extrovert or an extrovert extrovert. There's everybody's managing their energy in some way. And it's like claim your tag. It's all good. It's all
It's
good.
all good. Yeah. And I think that being transparent with my audience, like, hey, I'm on do not disturb today, or I'm laying on the couch watching Dateline all day. Don't talk to me. Like, they just laugh. It's funny. It's like our little thing that I talk with my clients about or talk with my audience about. And they feel like they get to know me more.
That's awesome. Well, speaking of getting to know you more, what can we do to support you, to lift you up, to continue to help you catapult in these next levels of adventures you're on?
Say my name first in a room that matters. That's
So
it.
Yes,
That's
simple.
the best thing
that's
you could do.
done.
So simple. What can I do for you guys? Thank you for having me today.
Yeah.
Candice Carcioppolo. I want to say it the right way, though. Say your last name again. I want to say it the right way.
Okay, so we went to our honeymoon in Italy and everyone said it like this, so I feel like this must be it. Carciopolo.
Carcioppolo.
Mhm.
Okay.
Carciopolo. Carciopolo.
Carciopolo.
Good. We'll say it 3 times. Carciopolo. All
I
right.
like
Well,
I like when we get serious too. Carciopolo.
Carciopolo. Yes, yes, with the serious, deep voice for
There
radio.
you
Yes.
go. Yeah.
Well, Candace, this was a pleasure. This was a
Yeah.
joy. This was such great information. We have to have you back again. Just keep doing the work you're doing. I really am particularly just enthused by how you have mindset as a foundation of your work. I think that's so important. I'm so impressed that you taught kids how to do it at such a young age because I try to sprinkle it into my college students. So to hear a fifth or sixth grader talk about it would blow my mind in a good way. So
Yep.
props to you.
Thank
And
you.
just thanks for sharing your expertise and great ideas and keep being an example for all of us.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate you too.
Thanks for
Yes, we'll
being
put you back
here.
in the green room. We'll put you back in the green room and we'll come see you in a moment. But we will do our virtual round of applause. So thank you very much, Candace. So there we go.
Clap, 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 clap,
Awesome.
clap, 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 clap,
Okay.
clap.
Yes. Mandy, who do we have to look forward to next week?
We've got a real ringer. So we have Jamie Sigler O'Grady, who is the founder of JPR, which is a lifestyle and hospitality public relations firm. And they've been around a long time, but they just got a huge award. They were today, it just came out that they were voted one of the top 25 most powerful PR firms in the United States. And the founder, Jamie's going to be on our show next week. So I'm very excited. I've known her a really long time. So I'm excited to catch up with her because I haven't caught up with her. But I'm excited just to, pick her brain and talk about somebody that's grown a business and opened multiple offices around the world. And just hearing, what that business growth looks like is going to be super exciting.
Amazing. Can't wait for that. Thanks again to Candace for an amazing show. Make sure that you all continue to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast and the live stream. Share it with a friend. And with that, we will see you all next week, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. on the West. And keep getting healthier, Mandy, for you.
Thank you. Lots of liquids. Hi. Bye, everybody. Wear your masks.
Take
Have a
care.
good day.
Yes, take care, everyone.